a great evening to to each and every one of you watching this video, and a warm welcome to all of you. And we know prelims is fast approaching. That is on 25th May 2025. We'll be taking up UPSC preliminary examination. A hearty all the best and wishes. Please do take care of your health and then prepare well and then do your last minute revision quickly. And please do watch our UPSC masterclass, that is the prelims masterclass 2025 for your last minute revision, which is very crucial, where we dealt with the most potential topics. Okay, so this is Sureka Bhaskar, and now I will be dealing with the daily news analysis for this particular day. And here we've actually picked up very important articles from both the Hindu as well as the Indian Express that become extremely important and relevant for the UPSC examination. Okay, so let us start our day with the daily motivation. So what is written over here is procrastination is the thief of time. Of course, procrastination means you are lazy and you are delaying some work that actually has to be done at once. For example, your preparation for the examination, because many of us right now know how much of time we have actually lost in the past. So now we cannot correct it. So if you are a person who wants to start again from today, please do kickstart afresh and then prepare for the upcoming attempt or for the next attempt. Okay, so give it your all. Do not procrastinate, because procrastination will steal all your time which you have to otherwise spend on your productive as well as efficient work. Okay, so with this, let's actually move forward to see what are all the topics that we'll be picking up today for discussion. These are very simple topics, and one or two we've already discussed, as I can actually recollect. So the first article of discussion today has been picked up from page number 9 of the Hindu, the role of internet in spreading misinformation. So recently we actually had the attack, right? We had the Falgam attack that was actually launched by the terrorist group of Pakistan, and as retaliation of which India retaliated, targeting the terrorist bases, precisely in Pakistan via Operation Sindoor. Okay, so when there was a series of strike, or what you say, the volatility that was happening between India and Pakistan, if you see, the social media handles were actually filled with a lot of fake news as well as misinformation. Okay, so here we need to understand what is the concept of misinformation and how it is different from disinformation. Okay, misinformation is unknowingly or involuntarily what happens, there is actually spread of some information which is false or inaccurate. So this is not deliberately shared. Okay, so deliberate sharing is called disinformation, and disinformation is done in order to shake the stability of the political system, or to create some kind of fear or chaos amidst the people, and also to manipulate the decision making process. This is why disinformation is done, whereas misinformation is actually the sharing of false information, like the missile strikes that is actually happening in Jammu and Kashmir or in Chandigarh, something like that, and a false report on the number of casualties that actually took place because of the India Pakistan crisis, etc. So here we will be understanding what has been the role of internet in spreading misinformation. Okay, so here we'll be discussing about what is misinformation and what is the role of internet in spreading the same, and how it is different from this disinformation. Okay, so let's discuss what are all the factors that actually lead to the spread of misinformation, and what are the challenges that this actually faces, and what can be the possible way forward or the legal framework that actually helps in preventing it. And we'll also see few of the Supreme Court ruling, etc. Okay, that actually struck down section 66 of the IT Act. All that we'll be discussing in this article. Now, so this is going to be your mains oriented article. The second one is a prelims oriented article, where WHO adopts pandemic agreement to strengthen the global health preparedness. So recently the World Health Organization has, just give me a minute, let's see who are all in the live session, and then we will continue. If you have any doubts, please do post your queries. Okay, so ठीक है. So WHO adopts the pandemic agreement to strengthen the global health preparedness. So here WHO, that is the World Health Organization, has adopted the historic global pandemic agreement or the treaty. Okay, pandemic treaty. So what does this treaty actually aim at? This particularly focuses on strengthening our preparedness or prevention as well as response to any kind of pandemic. Okay, so this is what is the treaty. Let us actually see how many members have signed this particular treaty. If you sign, then what are all the steps that you need to take and how you have to inculcate that in your national health policies, all that we will discuss over here. And this was adopted post the pandemic, that is COVID-19 pandemic of 2020. So this got adopted in 2020. I mean, this actually came into existence, or the idea came into existence in 2021, and recently it has been adopted by the WHO. We will see whether India is a part of it. And recently we had the United States actually pulling out of WHO, Paris Agreement, etc. So all that you need to know. So this is going to be your prelims article. And moving on, the next is also a prelims article. So recently there has actually been a study by the World Wildlife Fund for Nature, the World Wildlife Institute, that is the WWI, where they found out that there are chemical contaminants in Ganga. Okay, so that is actually proving a threat to the India's endangered river dolphin. So here we will be discussing about the species of Gangetic dolphin. Okay, and we'll see what are all the sources of pollution or the contamination that is actually affecting it. Okay, so this is also a prelims article, excuse me. And the last article will be tweak in Jal Jeevan tender rule. This removed cap on expense that led to rupees 16,000 crore extra cost. Okay, so this Jal Jeevan Mission is actually an initiative of Ministry of Jal Shakti, and this came into existence in 2019 in order to provide portable tap water connection to the rural households for every individual. Okay, so this Jal Jeevan Mission, which focused on providing tap water connection, had a particular limit on the capital expenditure, that is how much of money has to be spent by the government towards this particular mission. But in the tender, there was actually some tweaking of the rules. Certain rules got changed, removing this capital expenditure. So when the cap was actually removed, now what happens? It has increased the expenditure to about 16,000 crores. It's not easy money, right? It's not a small amount. So we will be discussing here about Jal Jeevan Mission. So what are the tweaks in the rules of this mission? All that is not important. You just have to understand what is this mission. It's a flagship initiative of which ministry, what are the provisions, who regulates it, or the implementing agency, and so far what has been the success of the performance of this mission is what is important for us. Okay, so having said this, let us quickly move to our first article, that is the role of internet in spreading misinformation. So as I told you, you need to here understand why this particular article is in the news, because this is amidst the recent crisis that was actually taking place between India and Pakistan via Operation Sindoor, where India targeted or precisely targeted the terrorist bases of Pakistan. Okay, so this is where what happens, the internet, or you can say social media platforms, were flooded with a lot of misinformation regarding the fake counts of the casualties that actually took place on either sides, how many civilians or the soldiers had actually died, that were the numbers were actually inflated, the numbers were increased and they were shown outside. And also there were pictures like the missiles striking the border area. Okay, so these were the photographs or the images that were taken during some other crisis. For example, the volatility in the Middle East, the Israel Hamas conflict, the Yemen or the Syrian war, it was taken during that period. Okay, so what is this misinformation? What is the role of internet and other social media platforms like WhatsApp, Twitter, etc., through which this misinformation spreads? And what are all the reasons or the factors which are actually driving the spread of misinformation? How it is different from disinformation? What are all the policy or the regulatory frameworks under which India covers this particular spread of misinformation, and what are the Supreme Court rulings? All this we will discuss in this article very quickly. So misinformation as a threat to national security becomes a very important topic for your mains examination, and also challenges to internal security. So this becomes important for your mains examination GS paper 3, challenges to internal security through communication networks and role of media and social networking sites in internal security challenges. So a similar question was asked in your mains examination in 2016. Let's see what it is. So use of internet and social media by the non-state actors for the subversive activities is a major societal concern. So how have these been misused in the recent past and suggest effective guidelines to curb the same? Okay, so here you need to know how social media actually acts as both boon as well as bane. Okay, so this is what is the topic. So here you know the social media and the spread of information, whether it is misinformation or how effectively it is, bridging the gap between the government as well as the citizens on the other side. Both that is important. Okay, so let us move forward in order to understand why this particular topic is in the news. Okay, so there was a recent India-Pakistan crisis, and that time what happened? The social media platforms were flooded with a lot of misinformation. So misinformation like what? Unverified videos of missile strikes, I actually told you, and there was lot of manipulated images as well as falsely reported casualties, that is the number of deaths that actually happened on either side of the border. All that was actually happening. Okay, so this reignited the concern on how social media is going to impact. Okay, so misinformation via social media, how is it going to impact the national security? So this is what it is. Now let us understand, what do you mean by misinformation? Any kind of false or a misleading information that is actually shared without the intent to cause harm. So when you deliberately cause it, that becomes what? That becomes disinformation. Okay, so without trying to harm or cause harm, but which can still have its own challenges, consequences and the repercussions, is called as misinformation. So this can come out of ignorance or any kind of misunderstanding. Okay, somebody would have told you, okay, the border is volatile. Now what happens? This is going to create a lot of chaos and panic. So you go and say that there is actually war that is happening in the border. So there's a lot of differences, right? So volatility and war is a big it has a lot of difference. So you did not do it intentionally, but then what happens? It's getting communicated like that. Why? Because of ignorance or misunderstanding. Okay, the next one is, once circulated, what happens? It can distort the already existing facts. It can influence the decision making both of the people as well as the government, and it can create widespread panic as well as chaos. It actually causes public hysteria. What do you mean by hysteria? A large group of people have that fear or the panic. Okay, that is what it is. So this thrives in high emotion or low information environments, such as in cases or where the regions of national emergencies, or during some kind of a crisis, or during elections. All this actually happens and spreads very quickly. Okay, now what is the difference between misinformation and disinformation? So misinformation is misleading information, and this actually does not have the intent to harm, whereas disinformation is deliberately, it's a deliberate spread of false information that is with the intent of creating some kind of panic, or to manipulate the decision making process, or to deceive somebody. Okay, so this is called as disinformation. Now let us see the differences between the two. If you see misinformation, it is shared unintentionally, that is false or inaccurate information. Here it is misleading information shared deliberately in order to mislead or to change your kind of perspective, or to manipulate the decision making. Okay, next one, this is not to harm. It stems out of ignorance and carelessness, but here it is malicious, okay, in order to manipulate. Next one, this impacts or misleads the people, and it can create, fear or panic among the people, and it actually ends up in them taking wrong decisions. Here it undermines the trust you actually have in the system. Here the society or the group of people become polarized in their thinking, and this entirely, what to say, destabilizes the national security. So this is one thing. Next one, example of misinformation is forwarding an outdated cure for with respect to the COVID pandemic. So you are actually spreading that information, your neighbor follows, then their family follows, and it goes on. Whereas disinformation is the fake ID, I mean the fake videos of the enemy actually attacking us during the conflict in order to incite fear among the people. Let us see what are all few of the factors that are responsible for driving the spread of misinformation. First one is clear and simple messages. Okay, so people are generally more comfortable in spreading the information that is easier for them to understand and to forward. Okay, so oversimplified headlines, or in the name of memes or like images, they are actually spread very easily. Okay, next one, there is no credibility behind this, but still they actually spread it. Next one, trusted or familiar sources. Okay, so messages are actually, when they are forwarded by family or any kind of YouTubers or influencers whom you have been following for a long time, if they say something, what happens, we actually feel yes, though these people actually speak the truth. Okay, so that is when we believe. So what familiarity usually does is that familiarity creates familiarity creates perceived credibility. So when you are familiar, I believe that whatever you say are credible. Okay, so anyway, so that is when we don't actually check the veracity or the truth behind what is this particular information. The next one, confirmation bias. Okay, so what do you mean by confirmation bias is that you will be actually having a particular mindset when you're getting the information which are like your or similar to your inclination or perception. What happens, we do not confirm with that, right, whether it is credible or not. So when that aligns with your political beliefs or your ideology or cultural views, what happens, that actually results in echo chambers. What do you mean by echo chambers? When you're receiving the same kind of information that are similar to your thoughts and beliefs, that is what it is. Next one, emotional resonance. Okay, so the content that usually triggers very strong emotions, right, like anger, fear, or any kind of anxiety, your patriotism or nationalism, this actually spreads very faster. Okay, for example, any fake numbers on how many people or how many civilians or the soldiers have died, that will actually create very fast, or you can say spread very fast like wildfire. Okay, so that also bypasses your rational scrutiny. That time we will not verify and all whether this is true or not, but we will also forward. The next one is information vacuum. That is when the government actually does not come up with any kind of data either on their ministry website or either through the publishing channels like the PIB, the DD, etc. Then what will happen, there will be a vacuum. So people are very chaotic and they are confused or disturbed about what is the reality. So that vacuum or the gap is filled by this particular misinformation. So this definitely is a result of a confused audience. Okay, so these are all the factors that drive the spread of misinformation. Now what are the threats that actually come from misinformation is that, first, there will be creation of lot of internal unrest as well as communal violence. Okay, so for example, if you see in 2018 there was this communal unrest that was actually happening. So that result in lynching of people in Assam as well as Maharashtra over child abduction rumors. Okay, so rumors spread on WhatsApp as well as Facebook have triggered the mob lynchings as well. See, mob lynchings actually happen for very silly reasons. For example, somebody takes in, or you can say intakes food that is opposed by some other group of people in the name of religion. Then what happens, they come and kill you. So this usually happens between the two factions of religion in our country, that is Hindus as well as Muslims. So this is majorly through any kind of fake information or the rumors that are spread via social media. Okay, next one, national defense vulnerability. Okay, so during the cross-border conflicts such as the recent Indo-Pakistan conflict, what happens, there are a lot of misinformation, such as there are fake airstrikes or the missile strikes or the soldier casualties. I told you, right? And this all actually provokes the public, and it actually leads to public hysteria. Okay, this is the word. Hysteria means what? Inciting fear and panic. This is what is hysteria. Okay, so this creates a lot of pressure on the decision makers. So then also what happens, it will force them to take some kind of aggressive actions like section 144, like the curfew actually comes or declaration of emergency actually comes. So all this can happen and mislead the intelligence agencies as well. Next one, democratic erosion. When there are a lot of fake news campaigns that is actually happening, specifically during the period of election, then what happens, people will lose their trust in the democratic process. Okay, so there will be what to say, mistrust on the integrity as well as the legitimacy of the democratic process. Okay, so these are all the security threats. The next one, there will be public health crisis. Okay, like vaccine misinformation that actually came during the COVID period. Okay, so there were two vaccines. One was Covishield as well as the Covaxin. People said if you take Covishield, then you will die. Or if you take Covaxin, then the results are actually better. But then nothing is actually true. Both are WHO verified only, but then we had our own, perceptions about whether it is going to affect your fertility, whether it is going to affect the child in case if you are a mother carrying a baby, all those things, or if it is actually given to or injected to a person who is over and above the age of 60, what is going to happen. It's creating the cardiac arrest, etc. Those rumors were hovering. Okay, so this actually delayed our containment efforts. Okay, so when people were not convinced of it, they were not vaccinated, then eventually they contracted the infection and they spread it across. So a containment was also delayed. Next one is economic destabilization. Okay, so when people knows that some kind of crisis is actually happening, so because of this, gold amount will rise, the crude oil is going to reduce, there's going to be a lot of volatility in the stock market, then what happens, there is what, a destabilization of the economy, and the consumers will actually withdraw. Okay, so all this will damage your economy. Next one, disruption of strategic goals. Okay, so if there is spread of any misinformation, then what happens is that these kind of achieving the sustainable development goals, etc., all that, and also establishing what to say, the greenwashing norms. You know what is greenwashing, right? When the companies actually claim that all their activities and their end product of their activity is environmentally sustainable, but it is not. So for that, when you're bringing up some greenwashing rules or gender equality or public welfare schemes, what happens, they are not easily accepted, and this will further delay the progress that India has towards the SDG or the sustainable development goals. Okay, so these are all the things. Okay, these are all the threats. Now let's see what is the role of internet. Obviously, there is exponential reach, that is around 850 million internet users are in India. They have a variety, they have access to a variety of social media platforms. From Twitter, you have YouTube, you have WhatsApp, you have Instagram, etc., right? So here this has actually reached massively, and the viral content actually reach millions of people without taking much time. They don't have any kind of gatekeeping, it will just reach. Okay, so according to a recent study, what happens, 70% of the Indians have access to the news online, with 54% relying on the content that come from YouTube and 48 relying on what comes in WhatsApp. So these two, that is YouTube and WhatsApp, these are the social media platforms. These are highly vulnerable to the misinformation attacks. Next one, algorithmic amplification. Okay, so social media, especially if you have WhatsApp, these actually run on algorithms, right? So the algorithms are used in such a way that they prioritize engagement. Whichever content actually has the highest reception, then what happens is that that is actually spread across. So sensational, polarizing, or emotionally charged content gets spread very, very quickly. Next one is encryption as well as anonymity. So WhatsApp actually runs on encryption. For example, if I'm typing hi in my message to a particular person, to a person X, okay. So this actually gets, it's a code, okay. So it is read in form of X, Y, Z, like that. It just has a code, okay. And then it gets delivered to the person who's actually received it, and they can only see the message. They can only decode the message, and anyone else, the WhatsApp admin or whoever it is, they cannot see that, okay. So it is end to end encrypted. So because of that, you do not even know, or you cannot even identify which person or from which place that particular fake news or rumor mongering ever started. So that is why it has it is actually a bane. Next one, decline of traditional editorial filters, okay. So online influencers as well as all these YouTubers, no, they actually do not have a sense of they are not ethical, they are not journalists per se, okay. So what happens is that they can actually say anything they want, okay. So they do not have the journalistic ethics or fact checking norms. So whatever they hear, they will say. It's not that when they actually have to speak about the economy, or when they have to speak about health, they'll go refer to WHO site or the World Economic Forum, as we do, because we want to be informed, right? They don't do that. Whatever they hear and whatever comes in their local channel, they actually just render to the public, and that is what we also largely believe. So this is the role of internet in spreading the misinformation. So what is the legal framework in order to handle this? First is the BNS, which actually replaced the Indian Penal Code. I hope you remember. So Indian Penal Code, okay. So Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, and then the CRPC, the the Code on Criminal Procedure, and then you have the Indian Evidence Act. All these have been replaced by BNSs and so on. So section 353 of this BNS penalizes the circulation of false information, okay. This is number one. Next, section 197, this also criminalizes the dissemination of the false content, this which is actually going to hamper India's sovereignty, unity as well as integrity. Next one, if you see judicial interpretation, you have Shreya Singhal versus Union of India, and this is a case of 2015. So this actually struck down section 66 of the IT Act. What did this 66, that is section 66 of the IT Act, actually say is that if you spread any kind of information or false information online, then that is going to result in what? It is going to result in criminal offense. This is what section 66 says, but the definition of it was very, very vague in nature, okay. So that is why this was struck down by the Supreme Court. Next one, Amish Devgan versus Union of India 2020. This also emphasized that journalism has to be very, very responsible in India, okay, and they must not indulge in any kind of misinterpretation, or they should not touch any kind of religious sentiments, is what this particular ruling actually said. Next is state of Karnataka versus Praveen Bhai Togadia of 2004. This also states that the state actually has the ultimate duty to act against this kind of hate speech or the misinformation that largely threatens the public, okay. So this is what are the legal framework. Next one, we also have certain institutional mechanisms. Number one is we have the fact check unit, okay. So it is a government initiative. This identifies and counters all the false information with respect to the government schemes, the outlay, what are all the policies, as well as the public interest information. Next one, we have the Indian Cybercrime Coordination Center. This is the I4C, okay. So where this is actually under the Ministry of Home Affairs. So don't think if it is cybercrime, it is under MATI. It is under Ministry of Home Affairs. So here also they coordinate the cybercrime related investigations. And finally, we have the Computer Emergency Response Team. This is called as CERT India. This tracks and mitigates the cybersecurity threats. Okay, so these are all the mechanisms in India to tackle the misinformation. So we actually saw role of social media in spreading misinformation, and this can be a possible threat to the internal security. So this can be a possible question in your GS paper 3 under your mains examination. Okay, so now let us move to the second article. Okay, so we also have certain UN global principles. Okay, so UN actually says that there has to be societal trust as well as a resilience. Okay, and then they say you have to bring about healthy incentives, that is proper business models actually have to be there on human rights. So this particular principles for information integrity, this actually says that you have to prevent the spread of misinformation. At the same time, you have to protect the rights of freedom of expression. Okay, this is what it says. So apart from societal trust and resilience, that is the socially safe practices actually have to be there. Next, healthy incentives should be there. You have to make the public really empowered. Okay, empowered by understanding or by giving them the digital literacy, particularly in the unserved and the underserved areas. Next one, independent and free media has to be there. That is, press freedom has to be protected rather than suppressing them. And finally, transparency and research should be there. That is, one should know how a company is utilizing the data. Okay, so all this is there. Now let's move on to a second article. WHO, which has recently adopted the WHO Global Pandemic Agreement. Pandemic Agreement. So here we will be discussing about what is this pandemic treaty and what is WHA, that is the World Health Agency, which is actually the governing agency of the WHO. We'll read about this, and then COVID-19 pandemic. This is important for both the prelims as well as the mains examination under GS paper 2, effect of policies and politics of developed and developing countries on India's interest. Okay, so now let's move forward to see what is the kind of question UPSC has asked in the 2020 mains examination. So COVID-19 has actually caused unprecedented devastations worldwide. However, technological advancements are being availed readily to win over the crisis. So now say how technology as well as actually helped in the management of this particular crisis. Okay, so you need to know what is a pandemic, and in that situation what does WHO actually come up with, what is the status of the development of vaccine, and whether there was equitable distribution. And you have to know what is the role of technology that actually helped in countering the effects of COVID-19 in certain regions. Okay, so let us see. The World Health Organization has adopted the first ever global pandemic, okay, during its meeting in May 2025. So this particular pandemic agreement is also called as WHO Convention or the agreement or other international instrument. That is why it is called as WHOCA plus. That means apart from the convention and agreements, all the other, the rules, etc. actually come under this. So this is a legally binding treaty. What is it? It is a legally binding treaty. Very, very important. This actually aims to strengthen, remember PPR, okay, strengthen the prevention as well as the preparedness and response, especially after learning from the COVID-19 pandemic that actually took place in 2019-2020. Okay, so this was actually initiated by the World Health Assembly. This is nothing but it is a governing framework or a governing structure on which the WHO actually runs. Okay, then it is actually drafted under Article 19 of the Constitution of WHO. So the Article 19 of WHO or the Article 19 of the WHO Constitution empowers the World Health Assembly in order to adopt, different kinds of conventions and agreements on any matter, okay, with respect to what? The WHO's competence. It was negotiated by the Intergovernmental Negotiating Body, and this comprises of all the 190 WHO member states as well as two observer entities. What are the two observer entities? One is actually Palestine. Next is the Holy See. Have you heard about Holy See? Holy See is nothing but it is a central governing central governing body of the Catholic Church of the Vatican City, which is headed by a pope. Okay, and this internationally is actually considered as a sovereign entity. Okay, so this is what is your Holy See. Now let's move forward and understand about the WHO. I already told you the forum through which the WHO is governed with a set of members, that is 194 members, and it's the highest health policy setting body of the WHO, and it actually comprises of the health ministers from the 194 member states. Now the legal status of this treaty is that once adopted, what happens? The countries can ratify it, where it can make it as a part of their national health policy or the national COVID or the health policy. And the next one, it is legally binding for the countries that actually agree to be parties to it. And the next one, it complements but it does not replace the existing international health regulation. Okay. So it just complements, it's not a replacement to this particular thing. Now, let us actually see. This is however not important. This is the history of pandemics that has actually taken place and the death toll. Okay, so this I had taken it for just the aesthetics part from the World Economic Forum website, which talks about HIV/AIDS, and that was a pandemic. When was it actually a pandemic? Okay, since 1931 or 81 it has been there, and how many death tolls it has actually caused, so on. So we had Asian flu, HIV/AIDS, we had swine flu, we had SARS in between, we had Spanish flu, Russian flu, as well as COVID pandemic. So this is actually a time scale of how the pandemics actually happened. Let's see what is the objective of the treaty. There has to be a global framework, right? Because on the onset of this pandemic, what happened? Some people actually did not have the what to say, they did not have the wealth or that amount of sophistication in order to develop a vaccine at that time. So people who, or the countries which were developed and that was financially or economically more independent, they were able to save more lives when compared to the other people. And there were a lot of hoarding also. Hoarding means what? You are actually accumulating all the all the vaccines which are present around the globe for one particular country's people. So all that actually happened. So that is why, in order to prevent that from happening in the future, there has to be a global framework for the prevention, preparedness and response. And also anything that actually comes out of research from any country, there has to be equitable access to the health technologies, and also there has to be early warning systems, research and development ecosystems have to be built there, fair benefit sharing has to be there, and finally strengthen the health systems and emergency response capacity, particularly the low as well as the middle income countries. Okay, so this is the objective of the treaty. Now if you move forward, if you see key provisions of the treaty, it has few understandable provisions. First is pathogen access and benefit sharing. Okay, so if you want to have any kind of pathogen samples, so that also, and the genetic data has to be, what to say, shared equivalently, and whatever developers actually come out with, or whatever is the result of research as well as development, the benefits have to be shared equitably, such as the vaccines, the diagnostics, etc. Next one, the vaccine and the medical product allocation. So companies must actually allocate 10% of the pandemic related products free of cost to WHO and at 10% more affordable pricing. Next one, technology transfer and capacity building, that is there has to be transfer of technology of vaccine and the medical technology to the developing countries. Whoever develops it first shall share it with the developing countries as well, and also ensures building R&D infrastructure globally. And also public funded R&D conditions are there, that is products developed with public money must be accessible, have to be affordable, and has to be very timely when they need it. Okay, so let's move forward and see the other provisions. National flexibilities. Okay, so if for example I'm US and I actually have a vaccine, I'm doubtful if US will do it anyways. If I am let's say I'm Australia, and if I've actually developed a vaccine, okay, and now what happens, I might actually have my own trademark or the copyright or whatever it is, right? That is the intellectual property which I was designated to my particular vaccine. So during the time of crisis or emergency, I shall remove my intellectual property and I will share it, okay, in order to ensure there is equitable access during emergency. Next one, health workforce and surveillance. So we need to develop a global emergency workforce and robust disease surveillance mechanism. Supply chains and stockpiles, okay. So you should actually not stock and hoard the vaccines to prevent the shortages for any other country. Next one, coordinating the financial mechanism. So there has to be funds which actually ensures your pandemic preparedness, especially which supports the low and the middle income countries. Next one, why was this treaty first of all needed? Of course, when COVID-19 came, there were a lot of systemic gaps, okay. So I told you, different countries acted in silos, okay. So nobody knew what to do, how to contain the spread of diseases. So that actually resulted in blocking exports to other countries, hoarding of vaccines inside one country. All that happened and there was no unified framework. That is why we needed a global framework like the pandemic treaty. Next one, unequal vaccine distribution. I told you, high income countries had more access and they had this majority of the vaccine supply they only got. Next one, lack of global coordination. This also, there was no proper coordination. So data and pathogen sharing delays, okay. So nations were too scared to share which information at what time will be will be the right one to share, or whether it will create a lot of panic, okay. So all that they were actually very scared, okay. So nations delayed reporting as well as genetic sequencing, okay, just because of the trust issues that they had, specifically the trust issue that the US president actually had on China. That is why Trump calls the COVID as what? The Chinese virus. So next one, insufficient R&D in the global south, specifically the low and the middle income countries. We did not have enough infrastructure, okay. So vaccine production and research facilities also got affected, okay. So this particular treaty also has the One Health approach, which actually focuses on integrated prevention rather than acting in silos, okay. And also alongside the integration between the different countries, there has to be a unified focus on the humans, the animals, as well as the ecosystems. And also there has to be surveillance and prevention of the zoonotic spillovers, okay. That is whatever is actually caused by the animals, that should also be taken care of. Now, related legal framework. So if you see, there is this international health regulation. So, what do you mean by international health regulation? These are legally binding rules, very important, adopted by the member states of the WHO in 2005. So, this actually obligates the countries, that is, whoever are the countries who are part of this, should report the public health threats. If you see that, Nipah virus is actually there in my country, India should immediately ring the bell and say that this is actually going to be a pandemic, or this is going to be a disease from my country, there is an outbreak inside my country. You have to keep them notified. Next one, respond to the public health emergency of international concern. And also there has been recent amendments that was done in 2024. This was introduced, and this introduced a new term called as pandemic emergency. And next one, they established state party committee for the implementation of the rules. Next one, national IHR, authorities in each country, and finally new financial mechanism for capacity building of the in the developed or the developing nations. Okay, so these are all the things we had to discuss with the pandemic treaty. Next one, very easy article. So chemicals in the Ganga. So you know there are different chemicals that are actually added to the Ganga River because of what? The improper, or you can say the improper treatment of the industrial effluents, and that actually results in nutrient richness. There will be eutrophication, algal bloom, and then the biological oxygen demand or the dissolved oxygen is going to reduce, the BOD is going to increase. So that is going to alter the ecosystem or the marine ecosystem. That will definitely cause bioaccumulation inside the fish and the other ecosystems, and also the death of the others. Okay, so here similarly the contamination that has been happening in Ganga has resulted in the threat to the endangered Gangetic dolphins. So prelims and mains, it is very important, specifically under GS paper 3, conservation efforts because of pollution and degradation as well as environmental impact assessment. So in the previous year, in 2015, there was a question on which is the national aquatic animal of India, when it was actually adopted in 2009. Okay, it's the state animal of which state, all that also you need to know, whether it is Sikkim or Assam. Please to mention in the comment section. So, a recent study by the Wildlife Institute of India, it has raised alarms about the survival of the endangered Gangetic dolphins because of increasing contamination levels in the Ganga River. Now, let's move forward and understand about this beautiful mammal. Dolphins, as I already told you, it's not a fish, it is a mammal. Okay, so this is Platanista gangetica. It is actually a freshwater species and one of the few river dolphins globally. Okay, so you need to also know about the dolphins when they are actually spread across different rivers like the Yangtze, etc. Next, this is also called as the tiger of the Ganges, and it was officially discovered in the year 1801. Next one, characterized by, see, you can see long as well as thin snout, and the belly is actually round, and it has a stocky body, and it has large flippers. Okay, so these are all the physical characteristics of this dolphin. The habitat is that it is in the Ganga, Brahmaputra, Meghna as well as Karnafuli, Sangu river systems of India, Nepal as well as Bangladesh. So this is not only restricted to one particular habitat in India. Next one, the other features actually include, it's also called as the blind dolphin. Okay, and then it is also called as the Ganges dolphin, the Ganges susu, because it makes hissing noises. Okay, it is also called as the side swimming dolphin, or it is called as a South Asian river dolphin. So it actually does not have lens in the eye. Okay, that is why it is called as what? The blind dolphin. However, it has a highly developed biosonar system. Okay, so this actually helps it to hunt down the fish in the waters. Okay, next one, as a mammal, it cannot breathe underwater, and that is why for every 60 to 120 seconds it actually comes outside and then goes inside. Okay, so that is why its nickname is Susu, and it actually feeds on fish, and it is an indicator species of the health of the river ecosystem. Very important. Okay, and also it was recognized as India's national aquatic animal in the year 2009, and it is the state aquatic animal of Assam. Very important, not Sikkim. So hissing noises, so you have Assam. Okay, next, what is threats? The pollution, then the infrastructure or the development projects which are there, and poaching, as well as taking them for zoo training, etc. If you see the conservation status, it is endangered in the IUCN status, and it is under Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972. It is under Appendix 1 of CITES, that is Convention on the International Trade of Endangered Species of Flora and Fauna, that is CITES, and then in CMS, Convention on Migratory Species, there also it is under Appendix 1. Okay, now let's move forward in order to see what are all the takeaways from what this particular study by the Wildlife Institute of India. So there is presence of toxic compounds. Okay, so there are certain endocrine disrupting or disrupting chemicals that are found in the river. Okay, that actually endocrine means it's what? It's the hormonal system of this particular mammal, and the fertility is actually getting affected. So thereby eventually this actually results in the death also of the animal. So what are the compounds? We have the persistent organic pollutants, and also we have the DEHP, that is di-2-ethyl oxyl phthalate, as well as DNBP, not important again. And also pathway through the food chain. So it actually enters into the food chain. This is consumed by the dolphins. Okay, and these are apex predators. What happens? It actually bioaccumulates in the fish. First it bioaccumulates in the fish, okay, these POPs. Then that is being consumed by the dolphin. So what happens? They will actually have the highest concentration of these compounds in their body. Okay. Next one, health hazards of EDCs, that is, this is endocrine system actually gets affected, thereby fertility as well as immunity is actually getting affected. So there is genetic damage also that is there. This threatens the survival of this organism, and also there are additional toxic elements which are actually present in this organisms. Okay, so like mercury, arsenic, cadmium are the things that are present over here. All this is not important because of releasing the untreated industrial water or effluents or the agricultural runoff in excess. This is actually what happens. There is eutrophication. Okay, and the next one, there is actually lack of monitoring framework. Okay, so all this also you just have to know, not that important. Okay, so this is what is the Gangetic dolphin. Now the last article for the day is a tweak in the tender rule of the Jal Jeevan Mission. So this has, which had actually removed the capital expenditure, what happens, has led to an increase of around 16,000 crores. What is important for us to understand is Jal Jeevan Mission. This is important for both prelims as well as mains, GS paper 2, government policies and interventions for development in various sectors and issues arising out of it, and the implementation. Okay, so now let us move forward to see why schemes are very, very important. When did it come into existence, and what is the time frame in which the scheme is going to be implemented? The pilots have been in which of the areas, as well as which is the implementing or the nodal agency which is taking care of the scheme, whether it has come out with any kind of reports, the eligibility criteria for people under this particular scheme. In this case, providing tap water or the portable connection to every household for every individual around 55 liters per day. So all that we will see. And so schemes generally become very, very important. Here they have asked about Jal Shakti Abhiyan. Okay, so this has been launched by the government for water conservation and water security, and they have spoken about the salient features. So the context I told you, there has been a slight modification in the tender guidelines of the Jal Shakti Mission. Sorry, the Jal Jeevan Mission, and this actually got implemented in the year 2019. So there was small changes that was actually made. It removed the cap of the capital expenditure. Now so what happens? It has actually resulted in the increased expenditure of over 16,000 crores, okay, which is nothing but 14.5% increase from the initial estimates that has been made by the government. Let's quickly understand what is this Jal Jeevan Mission. So this was launched in 2019 by the Ministry of Jal Shakti in order to provide portable piped drinking water to approximately 16 crore rural households by 2024. Okay, so initially the estimated cost was around 3.6 lakh crore. However, if you see early 2025, the ministry reported that only about 12.17 crore households have been connected, because here they found out, they actually told 16 should be our target, but only 12 were over there. So there had to be extension of this particular mission up to 2028. That increased the cost of, outlay of up to 9.10 lakh crore. Okay, so this is what it is. Now let's understand about the mission. Again, launched in 2019, Ministry of Jal Shakti. So this you already know. Here it aims at Har Ghar Jal. Every rural household must actually have water. Okay, to provide 55 liters of potable water per person per day to every household through functional household tap connection. By the year 2024, it is a people-centric approach because it actually has a community-led development program, that is the Jan Andolan. Okay, this is a people's movement around water. So this actually asks community to participate and take ownership as well as be responsible to ensure long-term sustainability. Okay, so this is what it is. Now moving forward, it actually has various components. First one, functionality, infrastructure functionality, that is ensure that functionality of the existing water supply systems are there via tap connections. Okay, that is how water is supplied to the household. Next one, water quality and monitoring actually has to be there. There has to be regular check as well as awareness generation at the grassroots level. Next one, water conservation and reuse methods also have to be taught. That is why encouraging conjunctive use of surface and groundwater is important, and support augmentation of drinking water sources. Next one, enable the treatment and reuse of grey water to reduce the water stress. Okay, so whatever water you have already used, you can again reuse for your washing as well as your washroom purposes. Okay, so this is what it is. Now moving forward, let us quickly solve an MCQ. A mains practice question, and approach answer is actually given here. Let's see. In the digital age, misinformation is not merely a challenge to truth, but it is a threat to national security. Now examine the legal and institutional mechanisms. You already know what they are talking about. They are talking about the BNS as well as the Supreme Court judgments. Okay, in India to tackle misinformation and suggest the measures to strengthen India's information integrity framework. So you will start with the introduction. Okay, so misinformation, that is, you do not have any kind of malicious intent. So misinformation is spreading of some information without an intent to to manipulate the decision making, but it however poses serious threats to the national security. Why? It is going to incite violence. It's going to enhance, or you can say trigger, the public hysteria, and that is going to undermine your democratic institutions. So in the body, you will discuss about the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita BNS, under which you have two sections, that is 353 as well as 197. And also you have the other institutional setup, that is the fact check unit is there. You have the CERT, that is the Computer Emergency Response Force. This one. And then what is this here? Then you have the cybercrime portal, and you have I4C also. Okay, where you coordinate the cybercrime response. Then you have to say, after discussing all these legal framework, you also will discuss about the way forward. You have to strengthen the digital literacy campaigns as well as mandate that the companies are actually sharing transparency in the way they are using the data, and also there has to be judicial oversight so that there is no misuse of legal provision or information. Next one, foster collaboration with the civil society as well as all the other media watchdogs. Okay, next one, let's actually solve the MCQ. That is, these are the MCQs related to the topics that were dealt with yesterday. Okay, so consider the following statements regarding the MGNREGA. It provides a legal guarantee of at least 100 days of skilled employment. No, it is unskilled employment. So you know one is wrong. Okay, so when one is wrong, A is gone and C is gone. Next, work under MGNREG must be provided within 15 days of the demand, failing which the unemployed or unemployment allowance is given. Yes, correct. Next one, Gram Panchayats are required to plan and implement at least 50% of all the works. Yes, this is also correct. And attendance of the workers under MGNREGA is monitored through the NMMS app, which records attendance once a day. No, it is done twice a day. So this is also wrong. So statement 2 and 3 are correct. So your answer is option B. Okay, so let us move forward. With reference to the Indian Cybercrime Coordination Center, consider the following statements. Operates under Ministry of Electronics. We discussed today also. No, this is under Ministry of Home Affairs. Okay, so first one is wrong. It provides a national cybercrime reporting portal for citizens to report cybercrimes. Yes, that is why we have this. Okay, Next one, it houses a forensic laboratory to assist in digital investigations. Yes, this is also correct. The next one, it was launched in 2022 to strengthen the cybercrime enforcement in India. Not really sure whether it's 2022 or 2020. So this 2022 is actually wrong. Okay. So which are the statements that are correct? Again, 2 and 3 are correct. Here again, option B is your correct answer. The last question for the day, with reference to Panchayat Advancement Index that was recently released by the Ministry of Panchayati Raj, consider the following. It was developed by Niti Aayog. No, it is by Ministry of Panchayati Raj to monitor the performance of urban local bodies. Correct. It uses, sorry, wrong. Okay, because it's Ministry of Panchayati Raj and not Niti Aayog. It uses indicators aligned with localization of SDGs, that is LSDGs. Okay, to support the grassroots. This is also correct. Okay, this is correct. Based on the scores, the panchayats are categorized into 5: achiever, front runner, performer, aspirant and beginners. Okay, if you have a score of below 40, you are a beginner. Below 40, then this is 40 to 60, this is 60 to 75, then this is 75 to 90, and if you have a score of above 90, you are an achiever. Okay, so 2 and 3 are correct over here. So 2 and 3 are correct. Your answer is option A. Do you understand? Now let's move forward. These are all the questions, one with respect to Jal Jeevan Mission, the Ganges River Dolphin and WHO pandemic agreement. These are the questions that are framed based on the topics that we actually discussed today. So what you guys have to do is please do visit our website, that is Narayana Navigator website, where you will have these MCQs. Please do solve them depending upon the level of concentration you guys had in this particular session. Please do solve it. See what are all the, or where are the gaps that you have in your approach, and then we will actually discuss these answers tomorrow in yet another live session of daily news analysis, where I'll be meeting you. Okay, so thank you. If you had enjoyed this particular session, please do like, share and subscribe to Narayana IAS Academy YouTube channel. Thank you.